Hello, this is Cree Lawson. Welcome to another edition of The Future Today, where we dive into the predictions, the projections, the pundits, and all kinds of huff puffery to determine what it will the future look like and how will that impact you today. So the question of the day is, if trends continue the way they're continuing with the North Pole will sink in 2030. The polarity will not go away, but the ice will just not be there. So the question I pose to you is, can Santa swim? Can Rudolph swim? More on this later on in the episode. Here at The Future Today, we look at the future world through a few lenses. We look at daily changes to people, daily changes to technology, daily changes to input or consumption, daily changes to output or production. Generally, every day, there'll be a news story that affects the future of one of these four categories. We mesh these categories up and try to give you, in a few minutes we have together, a better view of what you can expect to see in 2030, 2040, 2050. Let's jump right in. Today's topics are people. Is the world's largest country shrinking? Kind of surprising. Technology. Who's making all the EVs? You see them more and more on the road. Where are they going? And once they're made, where are they going? Consumption. Lithium-ion batteries. They're not just for flashlights anymore. And they might be the biggest growth opportunity you're going to find in the energy sector. And finally, production. Can Santa Claus swim? And what does that have to do with production? Well, if Santa can swim, it's going to boost productivity. Little teaser. So let's jump into the first topic. You always hear about China is always growing, always getting bigger. It's going to be the country that eats the world. I grew up with this. Nothing is bigger than China. And yet China's shrinking. At 2.2 billion people today, estimates are that China could be as few as 488 million by, get this, 2100. I love it. We're way off in the future. We're nearly 190 years in the future. China may have half the population that it does today. Just as miraculous as getting to 2.2 million today, will be slimming down to 488 million by then. What's causing this? What's going on? I know, is it a controlled economy? Fewer children born? No, there's more to it than that. This has been in the works for a long time. So you can see China had its famous one-child rule. And you can see the one-child rule went into effect. And then they had a two-child policy, and they've been trying to stem this. And now they're out in 2021. You can have 3 children. But once you break Humpty Dumpty, it doesn't just go back together again. And so population keeps dwindling, all legacy of this one-child rule. But there's more to it than that. So shortly, China will lose the #1 most populous status in the world to most likely India. And they'll go from 2.2 billion today to less than 800 million in 2100. Some people predict different rates of decline, but everyone predicts a decline, which is different from the past. Why is this happening? One, you have 1.18 children per parental pair. You shrink pretty quickly at that rate. That's losing nearly 50% of your population that way. You have uneven genders. For some reason, the laws of equilibrium between males and females don't apply in China. There are just lots more males born in China. You can probably draw your own assumptions on that, but that's the way it is. And when you have too many men and not enough women, an unbalanced society, people do what? They move to where the girls are. That's causing some brain drain. In fact, recently more native Chinese people have been moving out than other countries than are immigrating in from other countries. So we've got the combination of low birth rate. We got people leaving. We got a whole lot going on, and nothing the government has done so far is turning this curve. And that's why it's the incredible shrinking nation as projected. Let's switch channels and talk about, but all roads lead to China one way or another. Let's talk about electric vehicles. You probably knew that this was being adopted. You probably have seen a lot of Teslas on the roads, maybe a few Chevys or Nissan Leafs or a few of those. And, you know, cars are they're undeniably taking up more market share in the US, but we're just the tip of the iceberg. In China, you've got many, many more electric vehicles being produced each year. In the EU, they've got many, many more electric vehicles produced every year. Here we are in the US. Yes, we're growing quickly, but look how many million cars, electric cars, are made in China every year. 7 to 8 million in China every year. Europe is delivering more than twice as many electric vehicles per year as we are. Outside of Europe, China, and the US, that's kind of it. It doesn't take up much at all. So let's look around at some of the other countries. I found it positively mind-blowing that in Norway, EV development share of electric cars being sold is 88%. I mean, that's already adoption. That's total adoption. They're already a total adoption in Norway, or nearly total adoption in Norway. And in China, 60% of all new electric car, China represents nearly 60% of all new EVs that come into the globe in 2022. They have 20% of new cars sold are new high energy vehicles. European Union has adopted new standards, which are going to reduce emissions by 50%. And in the United States, of course, we have subsidies to make up for these electric cars. So I want to transition now to something related to this. With so many electric cars being manufactured, with some countries, 88% market share for EVs over ICE vehicles, then that's going to have a follow-on impact, right? Well, charge up, because it's impacting batteries. In fact, batteries, the sleepy lithium-ion battery, if I can say that, what fits into your flashlight is no longer just for your flashlight anymore. And in fact, it's growing, growing, growing. Look at the countries it's growing in: China, Europe, United States, rest of the world. Now, why would that be? Well, look at mobility, cars. There's so many lithium-ion batteries needed by cars. I mean, this industry is going to grow at 27% annually until 2030. I can't think of many other industries that are going to have that kind of blistering growth. Thanks to McKinsey for this insight. When people buy electric cars, they need electric batteries to fuel them. And now, you would think EV cars, people move into batteries, we're not as reliant on fossil fuels, we're not burning as much gas, any of that, so we're saving the atmosphere. But it might be too late, because in the year 2030, at the rate we're going, we will have wet poles. What do I mean by that? By that, I mean all sea ice in the Arctic will disappear in 2030, an event that could be postponed until the 2050s should emissions be somehow reduced. We don't have a great track record for that, but somewhere between 2030 and at best 2050, the North Pole will melt. And it's interesting that we bring this up, because you can see the extent of the melting that's already occurred, but this, interestingly, has created an opportunity. I guess change is always opportunity. And the opportunity, why this ties to productivity, is that there's a whole lot more room for ships to get through. So there's now a boon, shorter transportation, because you can now ship goods over the North Pole, because it's not as big a barrier as it used to be. The only problem is when you're shipping through the North Pole, increasing your productivity, you need to look out for a little guy with a big sack sitting on a sinking island. So please, container ships, don't run over Santa. He's going to be swimming around the North Pole trying to get his gifts to kids. That's if you believe the predictions. So that is the future today. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you want to hear more.